This video, I'm going to talk through chapter 2 of the web writing textbook. Okay, so the chapter starts by talking about the traditional rhetorical situation. So you typically use a triangle and there's a circle around it. And the points of the triangle are text, context, audience. I always add, because I think it's really helpful, and you saw this with chapter 1 as well, the more we read and write for purpose, the more effective our communication and the effective our time spent. So we can basically fine-tune our skills, our writing skills, our writing practices, our reading skills, our reading practices, so that we know the information we're looking for, we know how we're looking for it, and we know for what purpose, we know the why. The more we know the why, the more effective we are at learning, the more effective we are at working through the material, and the more effective we are at building a representation of the discipline. So we'll understand the field of rhetoric more effectively if we know why. So we start with the book by talking about there's no one way to write. We have to assess every situation, and then chapter 2 is like, here's how to assess a situation. I gave you the why to make chapter 2 and talking about this kind of heavy rhetorical theory easier. And that's the whole purpose to the rhetorical situation. So we're going to start with, or the book starts with, the traditional rhetorical situation, and then we're going to branch into what I've created as the web writing rhetorical situation. Okay, so with the updated rhetorical situation, we start with the same graphics. So we still have text, we still have context, we still have audience. And we can see, especially because it's a triangle that never starts and never ends, the text, the context, and the audience are inseparable. They always influence each other. And why that's so important with web writing, and I can't emphasize that enough. It's very difficult to divorce text from a context. So we'll see BuzzFeed does this and HuffPost does this. They'll take tweets of the week, and I'm assuming so many people are leaving Twitter, myself included, we're going to see in a different situation something similar. There's a lot of information to start that, of the week posting, so that the reader understands why text from a different context used in this space should still make sense. So text, context, and audience, and now we're framing it all based on what does the audience know, how do they know, and then how is that going to help with all of them. So we start with text, context, and audience, and again, those are inseparable. And then we add to that culture. What is the culture surrounding this? Because again, there are an infinite number of cultures that concurrently exist on the web right now, and we as users of the internet shift which cultural understanding we're using to make sense of a message from message to message. When you scroll through TikTok, depending on what you follow, it's probably a mixture of cultures. Even on your following page, the For You page is definitely a hot mess of cultures, but the following page, you're still following different kinds of content, different genres of content, and in each of those, you're bringing a slightly different or vastly different cultural understanding. So culture. And then we add to that user experience. How do I use it? With what device? So I'm filming this on an iPad. I use a phone. What device am I using to mediate all of this? What's my experience interacting with that device? How do I find, once I'm in the app, the things that I need to use so that I can be effective, so that I can find the people that I want to communicate with? If I have a hard time finding the tools that I want to do the thing I want to do, I'm not going to stay in that space. And that's human nature. That's how all of these spaces work. So the user experience really influences whether we're even going to experience a text in a context enough to become an audience member, so that we can enact our culture, so that we even understand anything. And then we add on top of that, to really unpack some of the culture a little bit more, we have information architecture and discourse community. So where are the pieces? How is the information, and this is getting into information literacy, but it's really information architecture. How is the information located? And located is not necessarily physically in space. Located can definitely be in relation to other bits of information in that particular space. So where and how is the information located, and how do I have understanding, discourse community, to actually get into the cultural understanding? Okay, so I have lots and lots of information, and I have questions, and I have examples to help you work through this. And then I have reflection questions so that you can get all of this into your notes, so that you really understand the updated rhetorical situation that brings in the web writing concepts. because you're going to have to create your own graphic. So make sure to really spend time with chapter 2 understanding and unpacking these concepts so that you can use them for the remainder of class. Okay, so one more time. Key concepts for this class: text, context, audience, purpose, user experience, discourse community, information architecture, culture. We want to understand how all of these interact to help us create web messages, and they all interact to help us understand web messages. So it works both ways. It helps us create, it helps us analyze. It helps us create, it helps us understand. It helps us understand so that we enjoy. And that's how complicated, but also how useful understanding writing skills are to creating writing for any web space.